The right-of-way in polo is probably the single most important concept in this entire video rulebook because it's the most important concept in our sport. So we're going to dedicate a lot of examples and we're going to dedicate a lot of video time to the right-of-way. But we also have a whiteboard explanation. The graphics are combined with audio to help you understand the line of the ball and the right-of-way and the relationship between the two. The original right-of-way rule was very short, and we haven't added much to it in the last 100 years. So basically, kind of like the Constitution of the United States, the right-of-way rule is a concept born when polo was born, and it still holds true today. So the original concept that we are working with says, and this is in the rule, that a player may not enter the right-of-way of another player unless he or she does so at such a speed and distance that there is not the slightest risk of collision. So you need enough speed or distance, they're interchangeable, so you won't have the slightest risk of collision. What does that mean in practical terms? Well, it means whatever we say it means. So I'm going to tell you what we say it means. It means you need a couple of horse lengths at an average speed, say at a 3/4 speed, which would be a fast canter. You need a couple of horse lengths and a distance between you and the other player, called gap, that is increasing or staying the same in order for you to enter that other player's right-of-way. Remember, from the whiteboard, the other player's right-of-way extends from his left stirrup to his right stirrup and forward in front of his horse's face a certain distance. And I'm saying that distance is 2 horse lengths at equal speeds, or if you, the player entering the right-of-way, is at a greater speed. So if the gap is opening, you could potentially have less distance. If the overall speed of both players is slow, like at a walk, you could have less than 2 horse lengths and enter the right-of-way safely. At 1 horse length, you're at a reaching situation, so that's never going to work. You're never going to be able to enter a right-of-way of another player at 1 horse length, even at a walk, because you're going to be reaching across. So we're talking about 2 horse lengths-ish. Okay? Gap opening, good. Gap closing, bad. Okay, because there's less of a risk of collision if the player entering the right-of-way is going faster. I'm truly hoping that this is making sense. So let's just go to each individual situation that's addressed in the rules, and let me give you the practical explanation of how we umpires actually call this. Okay, so what we do is we watch that gap, and when that gap is about 2 horse lengths or less, we perk up. Okay, and when that gap is 2 horse lengths or more, we're more relaxed about entering the right-of-way. That's your basic right-of-way knowledge that you can take away from this. Turning to the right. Okay, if you're turning the ball to the right, you need a couple horse lengths and a widening gap. It's very unlikely you're going to get a widening gap because you're slowing down to turn. At every level, everybody has to slow down to turn. Nobody can turn at full speeds because horses can't do that. So what you're going to need is enough gap or space between you and the opposing player that's coming up behind you to allow it to be, at the moment you actually turn the ball, there needs to be at least 2 horse lengths or more. Okay? So remember that when you're turning to the right. So if you turn to the right and at the moment you turn, you slow to turn, and there's 3 horse lengths, that player is still going to come down with their mallet in the air. Almost guaranteed. And we're not going to call it. And somebody's going to say, well, they missed it. No, we didn't miss it. We're watching. So if you're at 2 horse lengths, you maybe get a whistle. If you're under 2 horse lengths, at the moment you turn the ball, you're going to get a whistle. Okay, that's turning to the right. Now, there's a small caveat they added to the rules a few years ago. If the field has sideboards and the ball is within 6 inches of the sideboards, so a ball is 3 inches wide. So that means basically the ball needs to be lodged against the sideboards or very, very close to it. Okay, so if the ball is lodged against the sideboards and you want to turn it to the right, you can do so at less than 2 horse lengths. And the one thing in the rules that's unusual, it says the player behind as long as he checks. Well, who doesn't check when you're headed towards the boards? Because if you jump the boards, you're in the safety zone and people and cars are right there. So I don't know of a situation in any level polo where a player coming behind you when the ball is lodged against the boards hasn't checked up. If they don't check, they're in a dangerous riding situation or something else. But if we stay true to the letter of the rule, as long as they check, you can go ahead and turn to the right even at half a horse length, because the ball is lodged against the boards. The reason for that is players have no other play, because you can't make a back shot. You can't really do anything when the ball is lodged against the boards. So for fields that have boards, if it's literally lodged against the boards, because remember the ball's 3 inches wide, and it says within 6 inches, then you can go ahead at a slow down and turn to the right, and the player behind you, he's going to check. So I'm sure that's not going to be an issue. But as long as he checks, you can turn to the right. With that being said, if the field does not have boards, it's just like as if it happened in the middle of the field. So just know that. Turning to the left, this is a little different. We're not so concerned with the horse lengths when you turn to the left, because you're not coming across, or you're not entering the right of way of the player behind you in any way. You're not depriving them of a near side shot, and that's the key to turning. You don't want to turn so as to deprive the player behind you of a legitimate near side play. So that's why you need a couple horse lengths when you turn to the right. Turning to the left, a little different. You need to pull the ball to the left and get out of the right of way, and then you can go ahead and continue with your turn to the left. Okay, and the delay of game situation is likely to come into play there very quickly. So just know that when you pull the ball to the left, that might count as your first tap. Okay, so go to delay of game and listen to that explanation and see those examples for that. Now, turning to the left, the reason you pull the ball to the left is if you don't and you just turn on the ball to the left, your horse's rear quarters are going to be over the right of way of the player behind you. More importantly, it's going to prevent the player behind you from making a legitimate near side play. Okay, so pull the ball to the left, get out of that area that prevents the player behind you from making a near side play. Not terribly concerned about the horse lengths unless your horse's rear quarters goes over the line and prevents the player behind you from making a near side play, then you foul. That's turning to the left. Blocking and shading. These are defined in the definition area of this video rulebook, but I'll tell you very quickly, that is just a player entering the right of way of another player, and we call it blocking or shading. What the most common way they do it is a player hits the ball on his offside, and a player comes in from the left and starts to try to cut him off or come in for an illegal bump because he's too far forward, and he enters into the right of way and he pulls out, causing the player that has the right of way to check, or he comes in a little bit, or he's trying to block the next shot. Okay, this happens constantly during the entire game at every single level. And it's a foul the moment the player in front that's entering the right of way, the moment his horse's right ear or his right stirrup enters into the area that's covered by the player's left stirrup, the player that has the right of way. So they're fouling almost instantly. The reason why we don't call it right away is because sometimes it doesn't make any difference because they get out of there pretty quickly. So if that happens, we'll yell clear. If you hear clear, you have to clear the quickest route possible. In other words, back to the left. That's what you need to do. If you don't, you're going to get a whistle, and we're going to move it up to the next penalty line, or possibly further if we feel that it's severe. Because when you come in and block or shade another player's right of way, your back legs of your horse can clip the front legs of his horse, and front legs are the ones that are most important when you're riding a horse. So you'll put that player down, and you could injure them, and there's certainly not anyone's intention. So be aware of that when you're coming in on someone else's right of way. You cannot enter in beyond their left stirrup. Cut shots and neck shots. What you need to know about cut shots and neck shots: if you are making a cut shot, you're going to lose the line the moment the ball leaves your mount, because your horse is not going to be able to follow that line. He's going to take a couple of strides to come back over, and you're going to be out. So if you make a cut shot, which is a shot off to the right, and there's a player from the opposing team to your right, he or she is going to pick up that line. You're going to have to come back in and bump them. Know that. If there's no one there, doesn't matter. And just remember that for everything. If there's no one there, you can do anything you want. Okay, this is only when there's another player involved. Neck shots, same thing. As soon as you make that neck shot, you're going to lose the line immediately. Will you be able to get back to that line? If there's a player to your left, the answer is no. The player to your left is going to pick up that line, so you're going to have to come back on your near side. If there's no one there, of course, you can do whatever you want. Now, if the player is not very close on your left and you can get back to that line quicker than that other player, of course, you've picked up the line, like anything else. Bringing the ball into an opposing player. This is the play where the player with the ball is tapping it or hitting short shots, and he brings it right into the back of an opposing player who did not drop in on them, was not making any unusual movements, and then so the player brings the ball into the back of the other player and puts his mallet up or her mallet up and wants a foul. This happens all the time. And the reason it happens all the time is because historically we would call that as a foul. Okay, we don't do that anymore. If you bring the ball into the back of another player and it hits their horse, or they are in a position where they're blocking you from continuing forward, that is your problem and that is no foul. And it might be a foul on you if you make contact with them. That's dangerous riding. Now, if you do bring the ball into the back of another player, that player has the duty to clear, right or left, quickly. If they fail to do that or fail to try to clear quickly, then it's going to be a foul on them. But you have to give them time to clear. And generally what happens is it hits their horse and nothing's called and nothing should be called. And then the player who brought the ball into the other player is upset. And it's usually just misunderstanding of how the rules work. Okay, so now you know. Turning for an open back shot. We changed the way we called this a few years ago, probably back in 2016. So this is how we call it today. When your team, let's say a player in front of you on your team is in a defensive situation and he or she makes an open back shot, that's a back shot to the right, and you turn to the right to pick up that right away on that line. Of course, you're going to cross over the line when you do that. Your right away is superior to any opposing player's right away, except if he or she is exactly on the line of that open back shot. So if your player hits an open back shot, you turn for it, and the opposing player is coming straight down the field or are coming at any angle besides directly on that line and on the right away, you're fine. Carry on. If the opposing player is directly on the line and right away of that open back shot, then you're going to foul because you're obviously crossing over the right away in the line. So keep that in mind for open back shots. 1 meeting 2. What's important about this is 2 players have the right of way over 1 player. Now, we're talking about a meet. Meeting is literally meeting. So 2 players coming to the ball and 1 player coming to the ball, and they are making a play on the ball simultaneously. That is technically a meet, and the 1 player will be fouling. Now, we stretch out the space for a meet a little bit because of speeds. And if this happens at a higher speed, if you're coming together with 2 players and you're a singular player and there's about a horse length between you and you're meeting the ball on the line, it's probably still going to be a foul against you. It's 1 meeting 2. If we stretch that out to say a couple of horse lengths or more at a 3/4 gallop, you're probably fine because it's not technically a meet. You just picked up the line and went with it. So that's about the space you need. Okay, it's not actually meeting at the ball, although that's the best definition of 1 meeting 2. We stretch it out just a little bit because of speed. So remember, 2 have the right of way over 1. Lesser angle. Lesser angle is the concept that if 2 players are coming together to make a play on the ball and neither one has the right of way and neither one is on the line, we choose the player that has the lesser angle to the line and we give that player the right of way. And the reason we do that is because we have nothing else to go on. So it's lesser angle, or it's the player that's going to be actually on the line on the right of way that's going to have the right of way. Checking out of a bump. This is a huge misconception that I'm so happy to clear up, and it's really quite simple. And everyone's seen this in the high goal, and no one understands why high goal players get to jump in front of another high goal player and take the ball without getting a whistle. It can be confusing, I understand. So here's the deal. If you are checking out of a legal bump, somebody's coming to bump you on your left side, and you have the ball on your right side, and you hit it forward, and you have the right of way, and you're on the line of the ball, and somebody's coming in to bump you. If that player is coming in for a legal bump, shoulder to shoulder, 45-degree angle or less, similar speeds, and you check up, that player can go ahead in front of you and play the ball because you checked out of a legal bump. That player still needs a couple horse lengths to do that, because if it's under 2 horse lengths, and especially if it's within 1, it's going to be just a reach across your horse. So that's never going to work. But if he does or she does have enough space, and they generally do, you check out of that bump, it's their ball at any level. The only reason you see this more prevalently in the high goal is because the players are more aware. They go to player meetings and they're told these interpretations, and they're told these rules, and they have, generally speaking, they have horses that are more responsive, and they have a higher skill level. So this is something that they're very aware of. Anyway, but it doesn't matter the level of polo. If you check out of an illegal bump, a bump that violates either similar speed, 45-degree angle or less, or not shoulder to shoulder, then when you check out of that bump, you retain the line, you retain the right of way, and the player that's coming in to bump you on your left side must adjust to your speed and all the other factors that we just mentioned. That player must adjust. If he or she jumps in front of you, it's going to be a foul. Switching to the near side. The key point in switching to the near side is that first of all, let me tell you what switching to the near side is. Switching to the near side is when you have the ball on your offside and a player is coming to hook you on your offside, and at the last minute, right before you go to hit the ball, you pull your horse to the right and you switch to the near side to avoid the hook. That's dangerous because that player is not expecting you to do that, and your horses can get tangled. So if you have to move your horse to take the ball on the near side and somebody is making a play on your offside, it's a foul. You cannot switch sides like that. If the ball bounces to your left, or you put the ball to your left, and you did not move your horse, it is not a foul. So you switching to the near side at the last minute when somebody's making a play on you is a foul. You moving the ball to your left side without moving your horse when somebody's coming to make a play on you on the offside is not a foul. And of course, you can always bump that player and take the ball on your near side. That is not a foul either. That's a good play. Coming over after the shot. Everybody does it. It's impossible to hit a near side back shot and not come over the line a little bit after the shot. So it happens. It happens all the time. What we call is more specifically coming over after the shot too much. So if you come over after the shot, say you take a near side, it happens with the near side back shot and a near side fore shot as well. If you take that near side play and you come over the line a little bit, there's going to be no foul because there's no danger. Okay, and it didn't really disturb the player behind you. He or she is going to appeal and is going to try to make it more than it is. And if the player behind you changes the line and fades to the right a little bit to try to make it look worse, that's a foul on them. It's called dangerous riding, and we are aware of that because we watch the ball and the horse's positions when this play happens. Now, if you come over the line on a near side back shot or a near side fore shot, so any near side play, and you come over and it's a little dangerous, you come over too much, that's the foul. The foul really should be called coming over after the shot too much. But we just call it coming over after the shot. So there's your foul there. Meeting on the near side. This is a simple foul with a bit of a complicated explanation. The foul itself is you may not meet a player on your near side if the other player is on their offside. You cannot meet on your near side. That's the rule, and it's very simple. Offside wins over near side. With that being said, if the player that's making the near side play is engaged with an opposing player that's making an offside play, and those two are engaged with each other, their attention is on each other, they're fairly close together, and another player comes in to meet that player that's on his near side and create a foul, it's one meeting two. So it's going to be a foul on a singular player for meeting the two players that were engaged, even though one of the players that was engaged was on his or her near side, it's still 1 meeting 2 foul. That's going to be the main foul. If the players are not engaged and you're taking the ball on your near side and someone comes up the line on their offside, you lose. You have no play. None. Plain and simple. And finally, my all-time favorite, ball passing your stirrup. When is it yours on the offside to play? And this is one of the most misunderstood rules in polo. And it's been the rule forever. We just misinterpreted it. So here's the thing. Inevitably, whenever I blow the whistle, I hear the player say, but the ball passed my stirrup, so it's mine. He needs to go to his near side. Here's the real rule, and here's how it works. If a player behind you from the opposing team has the ball, the line of the ball in the right of way, and he hits the ball forward, and you are exactly in front of that player without fouling that player, and that ball passes your stirrup, so now you are on the right of way and you are on the line without you having to have made any lateral movement whatsoever. Now it's your ball, and the player behind you must go to his or her near side. That is the actual rule. And what happens all the time is players will say it passed my stirrup, when in actuality that player dropped in front of the player that had the right of way in the line of the ball. And I have countless examples on tape, and they will argue with me till they're blue in the face. You must be exactly on that line of the ball, exactly in front of that player, without blocking or fouling that player. Then it's yours. Then he has to switch to the near side. So I hope that clears that up. And that concludes the right-of-way portion of the video rule book as far as explaining the major right-of-way violations. I want to encourage you now to please click on the examples. It's a little repetitive, but you can see what these plays actually look like. They look a little different than you think they would, and they're not always that clear. And the examples that we used are the best ones we could find, and we're always improving this. But remember, even if it's a little unclear, that's what it looks like to your umpires as well. So it's good for you to see what it really looks like, clear or unclear, what these fouls and these plays look like. So thank you, and I encourage you to please click on the examples.